a grand Hindu temple inauguration in the UAE, a maiden military exercise with Saudi Arabia, and a sweeping pardon from the Emir of Qatar, and what would have otherwise been a devastating execution of 8 retired Indian naval officers. All of this has just transpired within just a few days. India is at the pinnacle of its diplomatic prowess in Gulf countries, and there's a common thread binding this trend together. It is Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his personally managed relationships with the rulers of these prominent Muslim nations. At a time when the world is divided over the Israel-Gaza war, and the monarchs of leading Islamic nations are on edge to avoid the slightest of bad press, their solidarity with India has reached new heights. Just take a look at the Babs Temple in the United Arab Emirates. This incredibly grand temple complex has come up right at the heart of the Arab world. The temple has been built at a cost of $84 million on an area of 27 acres and on land donated by the Emirati president himself. And who inaugurated it? Well, none other than Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself, who thanked UAE's Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for making it all happen.
जब साल 2015 में उनके सामने आप सबकी ओर से यहां अबू धाबी में एक मंदिर का प्रस्ताव रखा, तो वो तुरंत एक पल भी गंवाए बिना उन्होंने हाँ कह दिया। और उन्होंने यहां तक कह दिया, जिस जमीन पे तुम लकीर खींच लोगे वो मैं दे दूंगा। और अब अबू धाबी में ये भव्य दिव्य मंदिर के लोकार्पण का ऐतिहासिक समय आ गया है।
In his address to the diaspora in Abu Dhabi, Narendra Modi said that when he requested the possibility of a Hindu temple in Abu Dhabi, MBZ instantly agreed. The Emirati leader went on to instruct stakeholders that the temple should be built with glory and grandeur. So the temple does not just serve its purpose, but it also looks the part, marking a first of its kind in the entire region.
Honorable Prime Minister, it is indeed an honor to have you visit our country and to work together to enhance and strengthen our great relations. We are proud to welcome you as a great friend, as a representative of a great and friendly country, India. Your visit to the UAE is a clear indication of the depth of the friendship, trust and cooperation that has long existed between India and the United Arab Emirates and has been strengthened greatly by your Excellency.
And this is indeed a grand gesture from the Emiratis, who have remained unfazed by the Western media's narrative that Indian Muslims are an oppressed minority. Instead, the UAE's leadership has presented a glowing endorsement of PM Modi himself at a time when India is headed for a national election. You see, under the Crown Prince, the UAE has taken a progressive turn. While it remains highly traditionalist and authoritarian from the outset, it is still relatively one of the most liberal countries in West Asia. Moreover, the UAE has positioned itself as anti-terrorism. And when it comes to India, the UAE has gone all in. The two nations are strategically aligned and are part of various regional groupings and projects, including the I2U2 and the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or the IMEC. In fact, India can count on the UAE to be a trusted friend, come what may. The UAE does not pass running commentary on Kashmir or side with Pakistan against India. It is not just investing in Jammu and Kashmir, but it is also recognizing POK, or Pakistan Occupied Kashmir, as part of India. Trade between the two countries has reached $84 billion, and it could reach $100 billion soon. So this makes the UAE India's third largest trade partner. What's more, non-oil trade has crossed $50 billion, and India's exports are rising. The UAE is also accepting payments for oil in the Indian rupee. It has accepted UPI payment system and the RuPay card, which is great news for Indians there. At the end of the day, the UAE recognizes the great potential in India. India is not just the fastest growing large economy in the world, but it is also an increasingly powerful player in global geopolitics. Moreover, at 3.3 million, Indians form more than 1/3 of the total population in the UAE. They have helped build this nation while never once posing a challenge to its security or its polity. So if you're looking for a pair of best friends on the world map, one of them is undoubtedly the duo of India and the UAE. Now let's head to Qatar, which is a whole different arena in comparison to the seamless grounds of the UAE. This is where another incredible breakthrough for PM Modi came from. You see, last year, Qatar's courts sentenced 8 former Indian Navy officials to the gallows on charges of espionage. While the details of this matter were never revealed, it was leaked that these men allegedly passed on top secret information regarding a Qatari submarine project to Israel. Now, Qatar is infamous for punching above its weight as a geopolitical force. But unlike the UAE, this tiny nation of Qatar has a dark side. It is a little too close for comfort with terror groups. At the same time, it cannot be shunned by leading powers of the world. So while Hamas leaders enjoy safe haven in Qatar, the Mossad chief can come in and go whenever he wants to. And while it hosts the USA's largest overseas base, it remains highly influential among the Talibani leadership. Ultimately, talks between the US and Taliban were hosted by Doha, that is Qatar's capital. And even now, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has hinged on Qatar to expedite the release of Israeli hostages held in Gaza. The death sentence shook India to its core. Never in its history had India witnessed such a sensitive challenge, and yet India's diplomatic charm prevailed. It stayed largely muted on the front end while deploying diplomatic tactics in the background. India dealt with the matter with utmost sensitivity and sought to cause no damage to Qatar's reputation. And soon the death sentence was commuted to a life sentence, and the life sentence turned into release. Moreover, Prime Minister Modi stepped in personally, and it is said that ultimately it was he who changed the Qatari emir's mind. An unfortunate tragedy was ultimately averted. As this relief set in, Prime Minister Modi announced his visit to Qatar along with his UAE trip, which was planned much earlier. A favorable LNG deal was also signed with this gas-rich nation. This was an extension of a 25-year deal that was to expire in 2028. We're talking about a $78 billion LNG deal securing a gas supply from Qatar for 20 years at rates lower than current prices. In total, India has estimated to have saved $6 billion, all while continuing on the plan to transition to clean energy. Now, from the fallout of the Russia-Ukraine war, we all know that Qatar has no dearth of customers. A very thirsty Europe has been standing right at its door for more than a year now. But it signed a deal with India, keeping in mind the country's growing geopolitical relevance and its booming market. For Qatar, not antagonizing India makes sense. Now let's come to Saudi Arabia, which just concluded a military exercise with India called Sada Tanseek. This is a reflection of the soaring strategic ties between Riyadh and New Delhi. You see, while not as progressive as the UAE just yet, Saudi Arabia also has a similar approach towards India, and it is also a member of the IMEC. A few decades ago, no one could have imagined any of the developments mentioned here to be possible. India just did not have that kind of sway in West Asia. But it does now, after years of nurturing diplomacy. And this has emerged as a major asset for New Delhi, impacting both economic and security domains.